Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining Friday, June 10th, 2 p.m. Eastern, and a lot of red out there for us to check in on. Wearing my glasses because I wanted to be extra smart for today's video. Let me know where you're tuning in from while we wait 30 seconds for people to join up. We're going to look at the broader market, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sand, ADA, Link. We're going to look at some things you want to look at, but I guarantee for the most part I'm going to be saying the same thing over and over and over again because of how many altcoins are doing the same thing in this bearish market environment. So I'll do my rundown and then I'll interact with you all in the chat room. Estonia, South Africa, Serbia, Nashville, Tennessee, Florida, Argentina, Germany. We got it all covered. Los Alamos. Would I be playing hourly oversold today? No. And I'll tell you why. It's all about probabilities. The probability of an hourly oversold bounce in a daily and weekly uptrend is way different than the probability of an hourly oversold bounce in a daily and weekly downtrend. So if I want to reserve my trading, if I want to be picky, if I want to wait for high probable setups, I pass on the setups that are less probable that are counter trend. Now, if the weekly, daily, 4-hour, hourly RSI are all crushed, that's different. But just a regular old hourly oversold bounce in a downtrend on all major time frames, zero interest. Again, we got to keep those probabilities in our favor as traders. And that's a low probability setup. We will bounce. We know we're going to bounce. But think about our signals that we have when we're in an uptrend. First, hourly oversold conditions. We watch the 5-minute trend. We watch bulls aggressively buying the dip. We have a bunch of bulls looking to buy that dip. Versus key support break, broader market weakness, heading into the weekend, not a lot of people around. It's just a much different environment. So this is on my screen as I move my face. This is the NASDAQ chart. We knew we were in a tightening range. We knew volatility was coming. Of course, it comes on the day where I unplug from the internet and from society for 6-7 hours. It's literally the first time that I have unplugged for that significant a chunk of time in as long as I can remember. And I bought some bearish SPY positions knowing if this range is going to break at any point, it's going to be the day that I'm gone. But we got the bear break. And so what that does is a number of things. Number one, it gives us short-term clarity. As soon as that break takes place, the bears resume complete control. Our weekly lower high is set. This is the NASDAQ. It's a weak bounce. Is this possibly a weekly bear flag? The answer is yes. Look at our retracement size. The retracement was right off 382. And now we're looking back down at these lows. And it's possible that we confirm a weekly bear flag to fresh lows. And if we look at the S&P 500, it's the same thing. The bounce retracement was slightly more significant, a good bit more significant, almost got to the 50% mark. So what we can say is the NASDAQ will likely break support before the S&P 500. If it does, we're not going to be looking for follow through in the NASDAQ unless the S&P 500 breaks support as well. And then from there, bears will have complete control still. So really the only hope for bulls in the short term is that we hold the recent lows and form a tightening weekly range. If that's going to happen, we pretty much need a solid bull week next week. Anything less than that, and we're going to be hovering just above key support. So I would love to paint a rosy picture for the bulls, but we just got to call it like it is and go with price action because it's all bears and nothing is changing. And we have to see something change for us to have a different opinion. And so with this weakness that we've seen, as soon, there's a laggard move in Bitcoin. As soon as we break support on the stock charts, which we did yesterday at what time? Yesterday, 2 p.m. Eastern, the bear break took place. Bitcoin, yesterday, 2 p.m. Eastern, was here. It gave a laggard bear opportunity. Because again, as soon as that support breaks in stocks, the probability that Bitcoin's going to break its tightening daily range bearish doubles for me almost. Maybe not doubles, but that's probably not possible. Let's say before the bear break, let's say we put it at 55%. We're going to break bear just because of the prevailing trend and the possibility that we're going to set weekly lower highs. As soon as the bear break takes place in stocks, that 55% goes up to 80% for me. And so we ended up tightening up. There's one bear break. We got another bounce into just a lower high. And then we followed through with the bearish reaction to CPI numbers this morning. So stocks broke bear yesterday. Bearish CPI numbers leading to follow through. Bitcoin held daily support yesterday. And now it's following along with the bear break of daily support in response to the CPI bearish reaction. So daily lower high and lower low. And now we're looking down at 28,000 and 25,300 as the only recent levels in play. And again, the only way that we are going to reverse this momentum in the short term would be holding our lows and breaking the high of the bounce. So for me, 32.4 now becomes the most important short-term resistance level. And a simple statement is, if 32.4 is resistance, the bears have full control. Monthly, weekly, daily, 4-hour, hourly, 15-minute downtrends. That's where we stand right now. The only people looking bullish right now are people that are trying to nail a bottom or have whatever version of their own technical analysis that is giving them a bullish setup. I just don't have it. And again, I'm not going to, the only way I will nail a bottom is if it comes in an absolutely crushed market environment with bears in full control, free fall dump. I play the bounce, I nail the bottom. That happens sometimes. Otherwise, I know I'm not going to nail the bottom because I'm not going to step in front of the speeding bear train. I'm going to wait for the bulls to prove something to me and convince me to be bullish. And for that to happen, if it's not in an all-out dump, it happens a bit off of the low. So I know I'm not going to nail the low unless things get absolutely extreme. So I'm not even trying. So I made a little bull attempt trade in Sands that I talked about in the last live stream that I stopped out of. And that was just, a low risk sideways range playing off of a support level. If we had broken bull, it would have been a worthwhile trade. We broke bear, I stop out. So I have been mostly, we're 6 months into the year almost. This has been the most cash that I've been in the cryptocurrency space in a probably in my life. Well, since I started trading it after 2017. Because even in 2018, when we were getting walloped, we had a lot of volatility on the way down. And we've had some of that volatility here this year, but it was a lot more back then. It was a pullback of 75%, and then you get a bounce of over 100%, and then a pullback of 50%, and a bounce of 50%, and a pullback of 30% as we're tightening up. And what we're seeing this year is not the same. It's fairly close, 50% bounce, pullback of not nearly anywhere near as much. This drop from 48 to 25 was notable, but the bounces are not as significant. And being a bounce trader, that means there's less opportunity for me. So I just wait, just preserve my capital and wait for a market environment that favors my trading style, that favors confidence in my trading style and different setups. And it will happen eventually. But until then, I'm just very patient, sitting on hands. I'll do a little something here and there. And again, there's opportunity for bears, absolutely. I have been making any bear trades that I'm going to be making in the stock market world, but obviously a lot of crypto traders are focused bearish, as they should be, until something about these trends tell them, don't be bearish anymore. And we're not there. So on the current bounce, we're just playing the zoom out game. We got an hourly waterfall drop with a lower high every candle for 5 candles. If we get an hourly bounce going, we know we're just looking for a lower high. If the bulls are able to change the hourly trend, we'll zoom out, we'll scout a 4-hour lower high to be the result of any bounce. Then we'll scout a daily lower high to be the result of any bounce. So we know the zoom out game, we're just going to play it one time frame at a time, and bears are waiting. An aggressive bear who's not in a position is waiting for an hourly lower high, or maybe they want to add. A more patient bear is waiting for a 4-hour lower high. So right now, the broader market is potentially giving us an hourly bear flag. This is a very weak bounce. And it's been very boring. We dumped on the morning and then we've just been going sideways. So we're patiently waiting to see, with 2 hours left in the trading day, are we going to confirm an hourly bear flag or not? We are due for a bounce in the sense that the 4-hour RSI hit 20. And if you go back historically, we've been weak all year, but the 4-hour RSI hitting 20 is generally when we see a bounce take place. So it's just a question of, do we see a weak bounce to cool off RSI or not? But again, tell it like it is. I want crypto to go up. It's a lot more fun when everybody's making money. It's a lot of fun when my long-term no-touch positions are accruing in value. It's a lot of fun to be trading bullish and making gains, short-term gains. But we're just not there. And as much as I want something to happen, I have to be able to separate my wants and desires from reality to ensure that I don't have a bias that gets me in trouble and give back profit. So, and right now in trading crypto in 2022, my account is pretty much flat. I had some little gains and then I had some losses, but I'm just hovering right around break even on the year and just waiting. The dominance chart is still strong. We've got a daily uptrend. And the green day today is showing us that altcoins are dropping faster than Bitcoin on this leg down. And we know that the dominance chart is going to stay in an uptrend as long as daily EMA 12 is support. And generally speaking, not every time, but generally speaking, if this chart's going up, we know crypto is weak and alts are dropping faster than Bitcoin. Ethereum just had a very clear break of our quintuple bottom of 1700. Ethereum has been clearer than Bitcoin in the sense that every single bounce is a daily lower high. Bitcoin at least had a break of some resistances. That move here broke resistance levels. Ethereum didn't do that. Just lower high, lower high, lower high. New lower high is now 1918. Next time we bounce, we can bounce 10% and just form a daily lower high. So that will continue to be our guide here. The only hope for the bulls in the short term would be a bounce from here, because at that point we would talk about a potential falling wedge. But at this point, aside from 1700, we're now looking down at 1545 and 1292 as the next previous price levels that could potentially help act as support. We're in a stair-step drop. We've set a lower high every single week for the last 10 weeks in a row. That is as full-on bear control as you can possibly get. Not even a bear flag as far as the weekly is concerned. So that's what we're keeping an eye on in the short term here. Talked about the Ethereum. Someone just pointed this out to me on Twitter. So I was talking about the last live stream 2 days ago. What's today? Friday? Wednesday live stream. Was talking about the break of 1700 and the short opportunity that would be there, even just for a quick little flip for bears, knowing how many stop levels were going to be at that level. And ended up with a decent prediction. It's all about 1700. You got to be able to hear it as well. 100 as a very key support level in the short term. We know there's a lot of stops there. And that's the kind of setup where shorts are going to pile in on a break of 1700, even if it's just for a scalp. Short at on the break of 1700 and then cover down at 1655 for a little quick win. Whatever it is, we know there's going to be follow through. 1655 gets the low. 1655 on the dot. So that trade would have worked out real well. Just a quick little 2% trade. Because when that support level breaks, stops are going to trigger. And so now we have a 15-minute trend change attempt. If we change the 15-minute trend, we zoom out, we scout the hourly lower high. If we change the hourly trend, we zoom out, we scout the 4-hour lower high. We're watching EMA 12 resistance as visual guides on some of these bounces for bears to potentially be looking to time their entries. And That's it. Drastic changes are needed. I guess I messed up the sound. Drastic changes are needed if we are going to see any shift. We need uptrends on a lot of time frames, and we are in a downtrend on every single time frame. ETH BTC is still a potential 12-hour falling wedge. I drew this maybe 4 or 5 days ago. I'm not doing anything with it as far as actions, but I'm just keeping an eye on it. It's just a little visual guide and say, okay, well, watching for the potential that this breaks bull. But again, it's not meaningful enough for me to do anything with it. Just observation. And there's plenty of times, I went on as I mentioned, I went on a rafting trip yesterday, and someone that I've just met actually has been watching my YouTube videos, which was interesting and odd. But he was asking me questions like, if I'm newer, what should I be doing right now? And the answer was learning, education. So I can look at this pattern and I don't have to trade it, but I can be observing and I can paper trade it if I want and see how it ends up playing out and add that to my memory banks, because so much of the learning, trading, and technical analysis, as we know, is experience and just logging in the hours of watching price action, watching how different time frames overlap with each other. And so you can be doing that in an environment that is not favorable for trading and still be benefiting from that. And even myself, right now, the broader market environment, how many times have I, in my 10-year trading career, had the broader market in weekly downtrends with follow-through for months? And the answer is only a handful of times. So this is a learning market environment for me as well that I will utilize years down the line at some point. So this is the time for education, for bears, not for aggressive bulls. Not yet. So some of the altcoins to be looking at, we've got Sand, as I mentioned, the sideways range, made an entry right around 130, 131 or so, stopped out on the bear break, and here we are looking down at our recent lows. So just a clear little tight range that broke bear. And again, that's where I'm okay making a couple attempts every now and again. If it's just a very small, that's a day loser for me. And I can have confidence that in the stock market world, in a day, I can make that loss back very easily. So just keeping that exposure and that risk small. I'm seeing a bunch, I posted about this on Twitter, seeing a bunch of accounts right now. I went from 10,000 to 3 million and I'm back at 0. And that's very real. And that's only through leverage and through an addictive personality. But we cannot position ourselves to give back the gains from when times are good. Because if we're going to give back the gains when times are good every time the times are bad, we are not going to last in this game. We have to preserve capital. And that's where it's so hard for people that have an addictive personality to just say stop. And they can't say stop. And just like you have a stop loss level on a trade, I've got a stop loss level with, my net worth. If my net worth through disastrous trading hits a certain level, I'm done. I'm done the game. I will not go back to 0 through doing silly things. And it's so easy to do that. I mean, you could do it in a day if you just click the wrong buttons and don't have any self-control. Can't let that happen. ADA, there's been a few names that stood out stronger before this bear break. The bear break that took place over the last 24, 36 hours. ADA, XTZ, and Link were standing out as lead bulls. So their setups are at least different than everybody else. Again, the vast majority of my list on the side here is all doing the same thing as Ethereum. Daily lower highs, lower lows, complete bear control. Nothing changes as long as daily lower highs keep forming. These three names are different. ADA just rejected from daily resistance. Now we're watching, can 535 support hold to give us a daily equilibrium? So if I am going to be looking bearish, or bullish, I should say, I'm not. But if I were forced to, it would be in names that were previously stronger and still can potentially form daily higher lows. And so ADA is one of those, if 535 can hold. And XTZ, we had a bull break here that gave it all right back. But I look at XTZ and I see this setup and I say, well, bears are going to look for a 12-hour head and shoulders, where if we do bounce from here, bears will be waiting, looking for that lower high, anything under 237, and scouting that lower high. And it's also the mindset of, bears that are looking through the altcoin list and saying, well, who am I going to trade? All these names are so beat up. I don't want to chase them to the downside. Remember when Ape and GMT and that little grouping of names were all bullish in a bearish market environment? And then they rolled over and bears feasted on them. Fresh meat. They feasted on those names. And so bears are now looking to these names. Well, we've been going up and we're up, 40% off the lows. So maybe I'll try a bearish entry on these names that haven't pulled back as hard. So you can definitely be looking through it, two different lenses. But I look at this name like XTZ and I draw a 12-hour rising wedge. And I watch for a 12-hour lower high to be the result of the next bounce, potentially shaping up a weekly lower high. It's something when your strongest bouncing altcoins are still weekly bear flags. This is a very weak weekly bounce. Comparative to other altcoins, XTZ has been strong the last few weeks. Link is the other one who's been leading the way. Again, tons of space for a daily high or low, anything above 731. But aggressive bears will be keeping an eye out for a weekly lower high to be the result of this bounce. So if I'm an aggressive bear, maybe a little bit more of a patient bear, I'm waiting for a 4-hour lower high to be looking for an entry. So again, I don't want to confuse people. If you force me to be looking bullish, I'd be looking at a name like Link that has space for a daily high or low, that has EMA supports incoming, but there are also potential bear trades there as well next time we get a little bit of a bounce. So those three names stand out as a bit different than everybody else. There's certainly a few other altcoins that stand out as a bit different than everybody else as well. But again, if we just run down this list very quickly, Waves looks different as well. That rising wedge on Waves has just been getting followed through. 4-hour EMA 12. Bears are going to be waiting there for an attempt at a 4-hour lower high after this many rejections. But on the daily, GMT, daily EMA 12, daily lower highs consistent. ENS, daily lower highs. You get the idea. I'm not going to go through everybody, but lots of daily lower highs. OMG is similar to ADA, where there's possibility we set a higher low on the daily compared to 235 and form an equilibrium. But I don't care about altcoins right now. If you're a bear scouting entries, you care about all these names. I personally don't care about them. I care about the broader market. I care about Bitcoin. And that's really it. I care about the dollar and these other aspects. I talked about the dollar in the last video saying we've got to, if bulls are going to see anything, we must confirm a weekly downtrend and see the character shift on this longer term dollar chart. And all it's done is gone up since then. So the dollar has had 2 big bull days while everything else has had 2 big bear days. And the weekly uptrend is easily intact at this point. And we've got a lot of space now above that last support. We have a new benchmark level, and we could say absolutely nothing changes with this dollar strength as long as 101.29 holds. Gold is seeing some relative strength today. First time in a while we've seen gold up, regardless of the dollar and the stock market world. We're testing the double top at 1869, 1874, and we broke it by a couple dollars, but still some resistance there. I bet we can draw a megaphone. We can at least draw an uptrending resistance line to be keeping an eye on, but clearly a day that stands out that bulls are very pleased with. Silver not nearly as strong, but at least it's green. So there's relative strength in the metals today, but certainly not in Bitcoin. Let's go to the Bitcoin divided by NASDAQ relative strength chart. Who's stronger, who's weaker? Nothing. It's sideways. This chart's going to break. And this chart is either going to show us weakening comparative to stocks or holding on better than stocks. And I'm going to be looking for this chart to break sometime within the next week. And it's just going to give us information Again, just a little piece of the puzzle. This isn't make or break. This isn't, huge change, turning point of events, depending on how this breaks. But it will give us some short-term information. And so an example, how can I use this chart? Let's say it breaks bull. If I then see the stock market bulls shaping up a bounce, I'm going to trade crypto over stocks because this chart breaking bull will show me crypto is stronger than stocks. And if they're both going up, that means that stocks are going to be going up a good bit, or I should say crypto is going to be going up a good bit faster. If this chart breaks bear and the stock market world is bouncing, then I'm only focused on stocks and I don't care about crypto at all because crypto is underperforming the NASDAQ. So that's how I can use this information when this chart does break. I have no idea the direction it's going to break. And again, that's where newer traders, people newer to technical analysis, tell me the way it's going to break. I have no idea. But I will react. It will give me information. I will react to how it breaks. And getting that mindset out of your head of trying to be able to predict what's going to happen and getting comfortable not knowing, having, information that we can use to shift our bias and shift the probability of how things are going to play out. But in terms of knowing the direction a break's going to take place, being able to say, I don't know, but if it does this, I'm going to do this. If it does this, I'm going to do this. And having multiple different scenarios laid out as to how you will react to when that break takes place. Or positioning yourself within the pattern for a low risk, higher reward scenario. That's how you trade. At least if you're looking to do it over long periods of time. All right, I've said what I want to say. I'm reading the chat room now. MSOS does have relative strength today. It's definitely catching my eye, but one day means nothing. If it starts doing this for multiple days, it's going to be meaningful. But just one day, doesn't matter. Again, worth paying attention to, worth making note, worth catching your eye, but one day means nothing. Where can I find other TCG mods, chart setups? In our Slack chat room. The video that I've got, Anthony, that you want to check out is utilizing Google. We want chart guys, crypto to stocks. And this is essentially for people that are familiar with crypto that are interested in branching out to other places, stocks. I'll definitely do another call with Eric Crown at some point. That was fun. TRIAS USDT, absolute full bear control, just one support. Every single bounce is a daily lower high. Increasing bear volume, 133 is the only support nearby. If 133 breaks, we look to 110. Next time we bounce on the daily, again, we can bounce 30% and just set a daily lower high. So trying to trade bullish in this environment is extremely difficult. Again, I have been trading for 11 years and I am a oversold bounce trading specialist. And I would have no interest playing this bounce attempt right now because it just does not suit my edge as a bounce trader. We're not in historical extreme oversold levels. I'm not seeing anything anywhere that has me think that the bulls are about to show up. It doesn't mean we aren't going to bounce on short-term time frames. We are. And I'm going to knowingly miss those bounces because I don't feel that my edge of being able to grab a good position and time the bottom is high. I don't feel I have a high probability of grabbing a position right near the low to give me good risk and reward. Chat room's on our website. Everything's on our website as far as info. ChartGuys.com. It's a part of the membership. It's on Slack. Got 1,100 people in there. Do I have an educated guess on the macro BTC low? No. That's just not how I trade. I would love to be able to give you predictions. I'd be able to put big, bold numbers on my thumbnails and people would click it and more people would watch it. But it would be dishonest and ingenuine if I were to do that. Because I don't have any idea more than you do whether we're going to bottom at 25,000 or 12,000. I have no idea. I have to take it one day at a time and get that information. Again, as I mentioned, I am not predicting things. I am reacting to things. So I'm reacting to what the stock market is telling us. And I'm reacting to what the dollar does. But I have no edge in saying where we'll be in 6 months. And my success as a trader at no point has relied on that. XMR USD is going to be doing the same thing as all our other lead bears. No, it's not. I'm thinking of a different coin. I stand corrected. So weekly bounce got a lot more follow through than other names. The weekly lower high is set at 209. And now the question is, just like the broader stock market, can we hold the low for a weekly higher low? What does the retracement size look like? Do we see increasing bear volume? Can we shape up a weekly trend change? But I can say that it's a lot more likely that XMR is going to form a weekly higher low than SPY, because look at how much space we have to work with. SPY has retraced 75% of its bounce. XMR has retraced maybe 25% of its bounce, maybe a little bit more, but nowhere near comparable. So what do we need for a weekly higher low to be set? We need the daily trend change back to the bulls. So I am now watching the daily downtrend as my guide. We just set a lower high at 195.28. We drop to the lower low. Next time we bounce, anything under 195 is just another lower high. We have to see this shift. We have to see trends change back to the bulls. We need an hourly trend change to the bulls. We bounce on the 4 hour. We need a 4-hour trend change to the bulls. We bounce on the daily. We need a daily trend change to the bulls. Then our weekly higher low is set. How much we have retraced before that happens is going to determine probabilities as to whether or not we're going to have a good probability of confirming a weekly trend change, or if we have retraced significantly enough that we're just going to look for a tightening range for a bunch of weeks. OPUSDT. Lack of history, and it's bouncing the last 2 days, but anything under 165 is just a lower high. We can bounce a huge amount and still just be looking for a daily lower high. So what's going to tell us the daily lower high is being set? It's going to be a loss of the 4-hour higher lows. If I'm an aggressive bear, I am scouting a bearish entry for a daily lower high. I'm watching this uptrend resistance line. I'm watching to see if this is going to be a potential rising wedge on the hourly time frame, and it is a potential rising wedge on the hourly time frame. So if we fail 98 and roll over and break 85, we're going to confirm this rising wedge bearish. Our daily lower high will be set, and we'll be looking right back down at our recent lows, 767 and 698. So the goal for the bulls to negate this would be to break 98 cents with follow through. If we do that and clear $1, I would say that's a rising wedge bull break. It's a failed rising wedge, and this daily bounce has follow through. But as of right now, it's a potential hourly rising wedge because the bull breaks on the hourly bounce are not seeing a whole lot of follow through. We break bulls straight into consolidation, break bulls straight into consolidation. HNT USD. Daily consolidation is not underway yet. We're watching a stair-step pattern with a higher low every day, 7 days in a row. Keeping an eye on that pattern. We're looking for a 4-hour. Man, I don't love the clarity on the 4-hour because of that last candle there. So I could go to the 6 hour. I could scout a 6 hour high or low. But again, bears are waiting where next time we bounce, because we have retraced significantly, we can bounce 10% and just set a lower high. So bears are waiting for a bounce to scout a lower high, hoping we confirm further downside into daily consolidation. And we'll then scout a daily high or low compared to 807 because of how much space the bulls have to work with. But aggressive bears are looking at names that have not seen daily consolidation yet. They're looking around at the sector and they're trying to position for that daily consolidation to take place. FTM doing the same thing as the weakest bears, just lower highs every bounce. Our new lower high benchmark level is 387, and the only support is 2396 nearby. It's a potential weekly bear flag unless the bulls prove to us that it is not, and right now they're not doing anything to prove to us that it is not a weekly bear flag. Thanks, Sam. Did the dollar already? Is the bounce the same as consolidation in an uptrend? Is consolidation... That's confusing me. Is the bounce the same as consolidate? So a bounce is consolidation in a downtrend. Yes. For bears. That's why bears wait for the bounce and scout the lower high. Just like if I'm bullish and we're in an uptrend, I wait for a pullback and I look for an entry. So bounces in a bearish environment, in bearish downtrends, are consolidation, yes. I don't refer to it that way because it would confuse people, but it's the same concept for sure. Any hopium? I don't have hopium. Maybe an ETF gets approved, but even then, I mean, think about, bears have to get punched in the mouth. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you give any bull news and we spike up, bears are going to be waiting to short it as long as there is this bear cloud hanging over markets. And again, it's not just crypto. It's bear cloud hanging over all markets right now. Aside from some little pockets, oil is holding on real well. But it's the kind of thing where, you pop 10% on Bitcoin and we're just going to be hitting resistance. And bears are going to be trying to short that. You have to punch bears in the mouth where bears have a clear short setup and you squeeze them out. And so you get bulls buying dips and bears being forced to cover at the same time. And on so many of these altcoins, because every single bounce is just another daily lower high, swing trading bears are not being forced to cover. They're just walking. I mean, look at any of these names. You could just walk a stop down. Or anybody that's been holding a short for a prolonged period of time, congrats. But let's look at Adam. Adam falls off a cliff and drops 60%. And so, okay, I'm real profitable. We bounce. I know we're just setting a lower high. All right? We top out at 1248. I'm going to use that level as a stop for my short with some wiggle room. If we clear 1260, I'm out. I'm locking in my win. We triple top. Nothing. There's another lower high. All right, I'm walking my stop down. This is how I day trade. If I'm trying to let a position run, I'm saying I'm going to hold this as long as we're in a 5-minute downtrend. Every time we set a new lower high, I just walk my stop down. And if we keep setting lower highs, I hold my position. And then when we break the 5-minute lower highs, I stop out. It's the same thing on the daily time frame for swing trading bears. Because again, so many of these charts, there's just zero reason for a bear to cover on these real weak alts. There's definitely a lot of people on one side of the boat. That's not enough. So what I mean by that is, when everybody's looking in one direction, we want to look in the other direction because that often leads to the boat flipping and a big shakeup in the markets. And that's definitely something to be aware of, but it's not enough for me to just go against that. It's enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to keep an eye out for this, this, and this, but it's not enough to just, again, step in front of a speeding bear train because I don't have confidence in my probability of nailing a bottom. So the only ways that I'm going to gain conviction in looking for a bull trade in this market environment are free fall drops with crushed RSI levels on a ton of time frames, which means a lot of pain, a lot of liquidations, and I look to hop in after those liquidations take place, or we change trends over a prolonged period of time. Again, it takes a long time to change a monthly trend. It takes a long time to change a weekly trend. It takes weeks and weeks. So the only way that I will shift my bias from bearish to bullish in the short term is if the S&P 500 holds its low or breaks it with zero follow through and is able to then break the resistance level that we just established. That would be very notable for me. But again, if I'm looking at the broader market and just can make it so simple where if we do not break this level, I'm bearish unless things get extreme. Extreme of the extreme is the only time that I'm going to step in front of the bear train. ETH supports, we already went over those. Just look at the weekly. 1545, 1292. 2 weekly supports from the way up. I do hold long-term no-touch positions. I will hold them till 0 or a bajillion. They are decade-plus mindset. Just not touching them. Bitcoin, Ethereum are by far the main ones. Whether or not you think inflation has peaked, you know, if you look at the CPI, the numbers this morning, and you don't believe it, what matters is the market believes it. The market believed it and has reacted to it. So maybe next time we get CPI numbers, if something's drastically different, we'll get a bull reaction to those numbers. But all that matters right now is that the market believes that inflation has not topped. And it's acting in line with that, with the big red day today. All right. Glad to hear, SD. If you're newer, again, just spend time. You know, if there's not a huge amount of opportunity, it's hard to educate. You know, if I'm going to put in 4 hours of education today, but the market's going nuts and there's opportunity, it's really hard to dedicate towards education because you want to watch the flashing numbers and you want to make some trades and make some money, and it's easier to do so in a bullish market environment. I understand that. In this market environment, I mean, the amount of content that we have, go through the free course. Take that free course as step 1. Go through all the lessons and more videos. Go through all the market psychology videos. You can even, if you want to be a sicko, you can go back and look at the charts on Bitcoin from 2017, 2018 and say, okay, what were some big days? What was going on back then? And then you can type in ChartGuys, crypto, and the date. And you can find the video. Again, I made a video pretty much 95% of every day from 2017 through 2018. And you can find and just review historical examples. Was I right? Was I wrong? What was I looking for? How did I trade it? I was right more often than I was wrong during that time period. But, I mean, that's a great lesson as well. All right, I'm done talking. I hope you all have a great weekend. And I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to do good things out there. Preserve your capital. Be patient. This is a multiple decades long game. Unless you're 85 watching this, I'm sorry, you're running out of time. Otherwise, you got time. Gary V is all about it. You know, you're 25, you don't know what you want to do with your life. Doesn't matter. You're 25, you're 35, you're just learning about markets. We got decades to go. Preserve your capital, stay in the game, and learn to be able to capitalize on opportunities. I will be trading anti-gravity stocks and blue sky breakouts in 2042 if I'm still alive. And I'm going to kill it. And I'll see you there.